And by the way, apparently, uh, it, um, these folks over here, hold on, Jimmy Dore and all these guys are like suddenly like decided they're left again. And they're like, how, what? Oh. He brings on Food Not Bombs founder Keith McHenry to argue that U.S. homelessness policy is driven by a homelessness industrial complex that profits from managing, not solving the crisis, citing California's large spending and local nonprofit practices. So Trump is just brooming people, not providing them with places to be or whatever. He's not the problem. It's that California has thrown so much money at homelessness that it's become an industry. Jesus Christ. I was like, this is 30 minutes. We're not going to have
people
time for this.
People get rich off of servicing homelessness.
Fuck you.
So they don't ever want to actually fix the problem because then they'd be out of a job.
They also can't fix the problem. The people servicing the homeless aren't the people that build the fucking buildings. People making hot food and delivering it to homeless people or handing out Narcan and shit are not the people that own the fucking buildings downtown or own large swaths of empty land that they could build. What the fuck are you talking about? Please tell me this dickhead thinks there's a coordinated effort between like building owners in the downtown area who would love for the homeless to just fucking disappear so they wouldn't be on their stoop, and the people downtown who are serving them food to make sure they stay near Skid Row in Los Angeles, for example, like because that's where the resources are. Fuck me.
And as we said, they already spent $24 billion in California, and that goes right into the pockets of people running NGOs, non-government charities, called charities, that are supposed to be addressing the homelessness problem. But
yeah, they are. It's very expensive keeping people alive. Also, 24 billion into that. You're talking about like 2 building projects, which you could talk about like the money going into building structures, which is a totally different thing, and the NGOs that are like giving out fucking blankets and food. You think they got $24 billion? You think the fucking Skid Row mission got $24 billion or $1 billion or $100 million or $10 million fucking dollars? Get the fuck out of here.
We've covered this many times. Those charities are nothing more than grift.
That's right. If you have ever volunteered to feed the homeless, work in a soup kitchen stuff, you're feeding into the homelessness industrial complex. It would be better if you just let them starve so they'll learn a lesson, according to Jimmy Dore.
We have special guests with us. A friend of the show, Keith McHenry, is back. He helped out the first Food Not Bombs group in Boston in 1980. He
helped them out? So he's part of the problem too, I guess. It's it's all these fucking volunteers, man.
Recovered surplus food and shares meals with the homeless as a volunteer with Food Not Bombs for 45 years. He spent 500 days in jail in San Francisco for sharing meals with the homeless and faced 25 to life in prison. He is the author of Hungry for Peace and the Anarchist Cookbook. Food Not Bombs is active today at least 1,000.
He's not the author of the Anarchist Cookbook.
Cities in over 65 countries. Welcome back to the show, Keith McHenry. Hey, Keith.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jimmy.
Pleasure.
Fantastic.
Thanks for making time.
So he was just handing out food and they arrested him and he went to jail for 500 days for just feeding people. Okay.
I wanted to talk to you because Trump is starting his homeless evictions, which is kind of funny because they're already evicted.
No, they're not. I get where he's going, but that's not the proper term. What he means is you can't evict somebody from a home, but again, we're dealing with very few brain cells here.
So here's the homeless tents in D.C. are being broken down and thrown in dumpster trucks. Our sidewalks in America.
It's just real quick. I understand if you're doing a long stream, you can get a bit peckish or something. Maybe don't eat while you're talking about feeding the homeless and them being broomed off the street and saying that people that feed the homeless are part of the problem. Maybe don't snack or have a lozenge in your fucking mouth. Anyways, these fucking people, that feed the homeless. There wouldn't be a homeless problem if, people would just die of starvation. Am I right?
This is from Wall Street Apes. Our sidewalks in America shouldn't be tent cities or drug users. This should have been done a long time ago. These people belong in treatment facilities, not camping on sidewalks.
So notice the little subscribe button up there. That's because Jimmy follows this account.
Trump is cleaning. Well, let's watch a little bit of it.
This is crazy.
Yeah, asshole. Yeah, this is why we were voting for Harris while you were helping Trump get elected.
So, and then the homeless problem's gone. Look, it's gone. The homeless problem, it's all gone. No
I see. So this is sarcasm, what idiots have instead of a sense of humor.
problem.
Exactly. They just need to evaporate.
So, DC's homeless pack up as sweeps are expected. What we know about Trump's plan. Here's what we know. Some of the District of Columbia's homeless...
Excuse me, I know this is a point of contention with the rest of the world and me, and I'm the only one who seems to bring this up, but people who shit on the mainstream media and talk about how, oh shit, nobody even watches the news anymore, or cares about the news, or reads the news anymore, and meanwhile, basically what they're doing is book on tape for real news sites. This is the AP. He's just reading an AP article.
Residents were packing their belongings Thursday before expected sweeps to clear out remaining encampments around the nation's capital.
Isn't this guy another one of the young jerks? He used to be. I think he left because he wanted to go, he saw Dave Rubin, the money that Dave Rubin was making, or vice versa. So there was more money to be made, divvied up there, because Cenk obviously eats from the trough first. So some of the people, buzz off and form their own thing.
Trump said this week that homeless people will be moved far from the city in his crackdown on crime, but details of the plan to do so are unclear. Near the Institute of Peace on Thursday morning, AP journalists saw about a dozen homeless D.C. residents packing their belongings. Items weren't being forcibly thrown out by law enforcement, but an earth mover dug out and scooped away the remains of encampment.
All right, we can all read articles, fuckwad. He's just reading stuff on the air. Get to the point where you are defending this shit. Where will the city's homeless be taken? It's not entirely clear. It's not clear because there isn't a plan. It's not that the plan was murky or unclear. There isn't one. Here's the plan. Fuck off. That's Trump's plan for homelessness. You don't have to go to another homeless encampment, but you can't stay here. That's what it is. Closing time. Time for you to fuck off. That's what it is. He doesn't have a plan for where they go. They're not going, hey, we're building a shelter because we're already over capacity, and he didn't care about any of that shit. I don't even know why you would pretend that he did.
We will give you a place to stay, but far from the capital. Let me bring in Keith. Keith, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that he says we're going to give you a place to stay? Does he mean in prison?
Yeah, what I suspect and what I've been writing about now and worrying about for years is that those places far from the city are going to be military bases where people will be placed, similar to concentration camps. Already, our shelter here in Santa Cruz is called the concentration camp by the homeless.
Yeah, but that's what they call it. Also, get to the point where you're arguing that Trump isn't the problem. It's these goddamn NGOs, which apparently, well, I don't know. We'll see what he says.
And, and this has been going on for quite some time. The U.S. Park Police have removed over 70 encampments since March in what Trump called DC Safe and Beautiful Task Force. But the thing is that what ends up happening is those people that were cleared in those camps, they have to go, one, find more survival gear, set up another camp somewhere else, then the police come and remove that camp, and it basically just sends people around DC in circles. Never, because the sweeps have been going on for a long, long time. We know that, like in February, they cleared the camp where Food Not Bomb shares food in DC, and got rid of everybody there. But then, after a short while, people came back. But if they actually want to have no homeless people visible under the system that they're currently proposing, what they are proposing is to remove people into camps, or to declare, as in Trump's executive order, which is almost exactly the same as Governor Newsom's order here in California. They're going to determine a bunch of people are mentally ill. They're going to make them, the state's going to put them under conservatorship. That's already happened to my friends here in Santa Cruz, even before, the Trump or the Newsom executive order. And I think it's also interesting.
Well, then what the difference does that fucking part of the order mean to that part of it? Also, is this guy arguing that there is not a segment of the homeless population that cannot take care of themselves and are not, via drugs or mental illness, incapable of, or are we supposed to just like bootstrap schizophrenics and make them get a fucking job? Or are we going to take responsibility as a society and go, hey, there's a portion of our society that through their damage through their own actions, genetics, or trauma, or any myriad of other factors, are too mentally ill to be able to care for themselves. And and we'll just pretend that we can keep giving them fucking haircuts. And then somehow this is a bad thing. God damn.
The Trump administration said that what they're going to do with all this new 1,500 National Guards people is they're going to enforce the already existing laws of Washington, D.C., which were passed by liberal Democrats. So there is really no distance between the...
That's right. Doesn't matter who's running it. So here's my question. Why are you telling anyone which way to vote at some point? And also, so let me get this straight. According to this fuckhead, and according to Jimmy Dore, it doesn't matter who's in office. Harris would have done this to the homeless equally. It was just I guess the uniparty hates the homeless, and they're like, even though Biden didn't do this and Trump is doing this, there's no difference between the parties. No, there's no difference in how they govern. There's no difference in how they solve these problems, right? None whatsoever. And not only that, does it not matter who you vote for, right? Yes, Harris was literally going to build more houses, and period. That was a primary function of her first term that she was focusing on. 3 million new homes, and that would free up other home space, like apartments, so that the rent could go down, so that more people could move into those and afford to live there. But to him, there's no difference. There's no difference between Democrats and Republicans, none whatsoever. And then, not only does it not matter who's in politics, but the private sector, when it goes after charity groups that are trying to help the homeless, including, I suppose, this motherfucker's organization, are just in it for the money. Because if Food Not Bombs wasn't needed tomorrow, this asshole would be out of a job, according to Jimmy Dore. So he has more of an impetus than anyone to perpetuate the homelessness problem. Am I adrift in this at all, chat room? Am I misreading this from your perspective? That the premise of this fucking video is that there's a homelessness industrial complex, and the NGOs that are trying to help homeless people are actually the key folk. They're the progenitors of the problem. Right? They're awful. And not only are the fucking charities Catholic Charities, the fucking, all the organizations on Skid Row feeding people, handing out Narcan and fucking blankets. Anybody who's, and I suppose it's on a private level too, so if you've gone out and handed out a blanket or gone down to donate clothes or bought socks and underwear and handed it out at, around Thanksgiving, which is what a lot of people do, including Summer and I, if you've done that, according to these fuckheads, you're the reason there's a homeless problem, and why it will never end is because you keep helping these people survive or something. Yes, that's right, Corgi Girl. Apparently, according to these assholes, is that it's whoever is helping keep the homeless alive is the biggest problem. And then if you want a political solution to it, which I guess, what's your other option? A corporate one? What are they arguing? That we should hand this over to fucking Microsoft or fucking XAI? What the fuck? But, I mean, what is this other than an attempt at nihilism? Like a recipe for nihilism?
Policies of the Democratic Party and the Republicans on the issue of homelessness, and they aren't offering solutions, and they're presenting homeless people as drug addicts, alcoholics, and mentally ill.
No, they are not. No, fuck you with the they. Why don't you just join the crowd of people who said, they tried to assassinate Trump. No, 2 fucking dudes tried to kill him. That's all you got. So I don't want to hear they about anything. There were 2 dudes. So they didn't have any support structure. You haven't been able to show that they were connected to a foreign government or internal organ. They weren't, attached to the fucking Illuminati or any of that shit. 2 dudes. Okay, so fuck off with that nonsense in the they. The same thing here. They don't present solutions. They don't. Well, then what did they do? Then how has California spent all this fucking money if they aren't presenting solutions at all? Did they just, like, today's our day when we're working on homelessness. What are we going to do? Well, we got this giant pile of money and we're just going to throw it into a shredder, and then maybe they can use it for kindling. They can use it to start fires. The fuck is wrong with these assholes?
And they're forcing the people they deem mentally ill and put into conservatorship, as they've done here in Santa Cruz. They place them on mental health drugs, psych drugs, and it essentially ruins, for most of them, they have like very difficult time dealing with it. Ooh. And they're placed in mental hospitals for up to 6 months to a year already. Just for, 2 of my friends were completely, they were unusual.
Yes, that was what it is. They were in fucking California. They were busted for being unusual.
But they were not a threat to the public or to themselves, and yet they were interned basically in mental facilities and forced drugged against their will. And both of my friends lost everything, including Cherie lost her life within a week after being released from the mental hospital because she went cold turkey on the psych drugs she was given in the mental hospital. So they're basically painting all the homeless as less.
Also, does anybody else see gaps in that fucking story? I'm just going to call bullshit right out of the gate. His friend Cherie died a week after she left the homeless shelter because she went cold turkey on psych drugs. Why? Is it because she wasn't able to take care of herself, which meant she probably should have stayed in there longer? Again, I don't even want to get into the details of the story because I'm calling bullshit on all of it. All of it. And this motherfucker, like, she was your friend? Then how'd she end up in that situation? If she was just unusual, you're housed. Why didn't she crash on your fucking floor? What is like
inhuman, very similar to the language that's used to justify the murder of Palestinians.
What the fuck? Huh? Sorry, so institutionalizing people who can't fucking not walk into traffic a lot of times and putting them in a hospital setting is the same as sniping Palestinians. That's the argument we're making. It's a 1-to-1 comparison. It is the same. He literally said it is the same mentality that says some of these homeless people, obviously not all of them, so a section of them, a section of these folks have got a mental illness or a drug problem that is so high they cannot take care of themselves. And by trying to help those people, you are the same. If you want to institutionalize and medicate people who cannot think straight and might wander off a fucking building roof or into traffic and get killed, or literally can't, like, are living in an alternative schizoid reality. If you want to help those people to not die in a puddle of their own urine on the street, you are exactly the same as somebody who is, I guess, standing on a rooftop picking Palestinian kids out of a crowd to shoot in the head. That's the argument here. For real. For real.
Very similar pattern.
No, it's not a very similar pattern.
And my concern is they're going to finally start to put people on military bases far away from the city, as is being proposed here in Santa Cruz.
So some people would say
that Jimmy Dore vacillates between giving a shit about these things and only because he wants to find a way to make Trump look better for doing what he's doing. Hold on. Santa Cruz homeless military bases. Okay. Santa Cruz County faces challenges in housing the homeless population, including military veterans, but several organizations are actively working to provide services. Veterans Village of Santa Cruz County, Housing Matters, Santa Cruz County Veterans Office, Nation's Finest Santa Cruz, Paget Center, the Santa Cruz while the user request mentioned in the search results indicate the National Guard Armory in Santa Cruz has been used as a temporary shelter for homeless individuals. That's what he's talking about. So the National Guard Armory in Santa Cruz was used as a temporary shelter for homeless individuals. Additionally, veterans halls have been utilized for housing homeless. That's not a base, though. City of Santa Cruz shelter programs. Again, some of these people, I guess, LAFCO. Santa Cruz to reopen National Guard Armory as a homeless shelter. So that's a building. That's not a military base. The armory is empty. It's an old building. It's basically like, it used to house all the weapons when they had to have a militia. This is what we're talking about. This thing right here. And apparently, according to this guy, let's see if this is. Congratulations, 900 people housed. Coinciding with Gavin Newsom's executive order Wednesday to inventory excess state property available for emergency use. To inventory excess state property available for emergency use, the city of Santa Cruz announced plans to repurpose the California National Guard Armory as a winter homeless shelter. That's apparently what this fucker is talking about. That they're going to send people to a military base. Because they're going to reopen the armory in the winter when it gets cold.
Well, giving them, housing at a military base and meals and medical care.
Yeah, isn't your organization called Food Not Bombs? How about converting all military bases into homeless shelters? How about that? They've got barracks, they've got tents,
and even psychiatric care. Isn't that better than living on a street in Washington D.C. in a tent or worse? What would you say to that?
Well, what I would say to it, first of all, these are adult Americans and children but the adults have agency. They're supposed to have some kind of rights of some kind. And essentially, this is like being sent to a jail without a trial. Now, in California, we have the care.
No. Yeah, I think that Stargal, I think it's a great idea. You want to talk about like repurposing old military bases because, you know, they used to be training facilities for soldiers and stuff. They've got barracks and tents and that kind of stuff. That's a fucking great idea. Especially as a transitional facility for people to live there safely. You could provide them with food and water and bathrooms and all kinds of stuff, guards at night and that kind of stuff to keep everybody safe.
Courts, which is like a trial, except for the defendant does not appear at the court often. It's basically my friend, for example, was represented by a county official who then deemed that he needed to be interned, and then that's what they did. And then that person, Barbara, determines what his Social Security money is spent on his behalf. He does not get to make decisions with that. So,
right, and why did that come up? Do you think there's a backstory here? Maybe?
This is a big part of the problem. Now, the other thing is, there are...
Oh, so they used to give some of their money to you. I see. So you used to basically operate kind of an underground economy amongst these folks through your NGO, which is apparently part of the problem. And now they've got conservators coming in, making sure that they don't give their Social Security money to you. That's what it sounds like.
Really,
You're probably selling him weed, if only.
In most cities, there's 20, 30 empty apartment units for every homeless person in your city, but they don't provide either Social Security, which is never enough to rent an apartment, or you don't have the resources to actually be.
Okay, no, there are not 30 empty apartments for every homeless person in the city in most places. I would argue not in any place, even Los Angeles. And if you do have 30, that ratio, that's because you're counting all the turnover ones where somebody moves out and there's a week where it's vacant before the next person is moved in, even though they have already signed on for it. Fucking hell.
In these empty apartments, and then the getting Section 8 vouchers and all those things can last up to 18 months, 2 years, sometimes people 5, 6 years.
Yeah, there are NGOs that help people get those faster, but apparently, according to this fuckwad and Jimmy, they're part of the problem.
Before they ever even are shown a place to potentially live. So I really think that basically it's a kinder and gentler way of interning the homeless than, say, the Nazis did in Germany in the 30s.
Yeah, much kinder. Sorry. There are layers of kindness in concentration camps. So it's just only so medicating some people who can't take care of themselves and then helping other people get jobs and stuff are, again, perpetuating the problem of homelessness. But then any of the services that they do provide is only a couple of degrees above what the Nazis did at Auschwitz. No wonder Jimmy's fucking viewers shrug off the fucking Holocaust. They see homeless people and they're like, they got it worse than the fucking Jews.
But it's a very similar thing that is happening because these people are losing their rights.
So here's what they say is the Hill, which is a conservative newspaper, they did an op-ed that says,
no, it isn't.
Trump's plan to hide, not help, the homeless is a national disgrace. That's a conservative, right-leaning news organization.
No, it's not.
Owned by a billionaire.
So is fucking Bloomberg. So is the Washington Post. You're not going to say fucking Washington Post is right-leaning, even as much as he might try.
And they say his latest promise to tackle homelessness in Washington represents everything wrong with American politics. Grand gestures that avoid the actual problem while feeding the system that perpetuates it. His pledge to move the homeless far from the capital and make the city more beautiful reveals the shallow theatrics that pass for governance. This is from the Hill.
Yeah.
It also exposes something more disturbing, the deliberate preservation of a crisis that has become too profitable to solve.
Okay, how many people think that this is from an hold on, let me see. Wait 1 second. Trump, okay. Yeah, it's an op-ed. Hold on. Fuck, this is gonna annoy me. Plan to hide, not help the homelessness. Whatever, okay. The Hill 5 days ago was criticized as a it's a national disgrace. It's an opinion piece by John McGleon. Hold on 1 second. God damn, there's a lot of ads on this fucking thing. Go to the reader version. Thank you. Okay, this is the actual article. And it's a John McGleon is a writer and researcher who explores culture, society, and the impact of technology on daily life. This is his. I'm going to turn off the reader part of it. It says right here, opinion contributor. The views expressed by contributors are their own and not the view of the Hill. Do you see how he puts the Hill up there and the big thing that you have to squint to see that on his fucking screen, and then he cuts below it so you don't see the rest of that part of it. And
right-leaning news organization owned by Bill.
Well, it doesn't matter what they're leaning because that's an opinion piece. So either that person is guaranteed a spot or they have bought their way onto the website.
Billionaire, and they say
in the area that says opinion White House. This part right here, right? See that part? Yeah. It matters. This matters. Okay. So he reads through that part. We already saw that shit. Too profitable to solve. Okay.
So it doesn't seem like they're actually, so what they're saying here is.
So the uncomfortable truth is that homelessness could be eliminated relatively quickly. Through direct housing programs and coordinated services, the model works, provide immediate shelter, mental health treatment. But this guy's arguing against the mental health treatment. Okay, hold on. So this is John McGleon writing this whole thing. We'll go with what the article actually says. Because he's going to go through pieces of it. Cities like Houston have demonstrated this, reducing their homeless population by more than 60% through direct housing programs and coordinated services. Also, Texas, fuck me. Texas has a history of busing their homeless to California. The model works. Provide immediate shelter. You can provide all you want. The issue is that some people are going to have to be made to go. That's the question here. Mental health treatment and job training while removing bureaucratic barriers that trap people in the system. Oh, boy. They get trapped in the system. Why? Because if they start making a living, they're no longer considered homeless, and so therefore there's a tiered entry level. There should be a tiered entry level, and there isn't. It's just a cold turkey thing. It's neither complicated nor costly. Next to the waste built in the current approach, it is. This is anybody who talks about the homeless as if they're one group of people is an asshole. Yet Washington, like most other people, maintains a sprawling homelessness industry that consumes hundreds of millions annually by producing minimal results. What looks like incompetence often hides intent. This isn't conspiracy apparent. It's how entrenched systems protect themselves. I don't know why that's a fucking hot link. Let's see. Total Homeless California Policy Center. America's Homeless Industrial Complex. Okay, so the California Policy Center. Well, let's tell you. Sorry. Fuck. What are you trying to do? There you go. Our team. The California Policy Center, an educational nonprofit working for the prosperity of all Californians by eliminating public sector barriers to freedom. Sounds like bullshit to me. CPC, aspires to make California the freest and most prosperous region in the nation, a place where everyone can get a fair shake in life, where families can afford to live and flourish. Or they have a vision of purpose. Like many blue states, California's public policy is driven by government union leaders, buoyed by $1 billion in annual dues and revenue, blah, blah, blah. So this is an organization that's against like state and federal unions, I guess. At CPC, we know firsthand, until we rein in government union power, there's little hope for reform in our state. This is the organization that the guy writing the article is referencing that Jimmy chooses. So the California Policy Center thinks that the problem is all this fucking tax dollar spending trying to help people is the problem. Is the guy in this, or is he just writing for them? Yeah. Fuck you. So, entrenched systems, it's in the home sector, funding formulas reward headcounts, not housing placements. Again, where nonprofits and agencies grow their budgets by by proving the crisis persists, not by ending it. Okay, they can't end it. It's not going to end. You can diminish it. You can help it. There'll be waves. But the people handing out hot meals are not going to end homelessness. Decades of war on campaigns from poverty to drugs show the failure can be more lucrative than success. A permanent crisis secures permanent funding, staff program. Okay, so yeah, this is why Jimmy likes this, because this is the premise of this is that using tax dollars to try and solve homelessness is the problem. Governments can't do shit right. And by the way, this where is this? Cities like Houston have demonstrated this. This is okay. So this is the. Here we go. This is. I remember this article. This is Nicholas Kristof in the fucking New York Times. So again, not only is this motherfucker citing mainstream media, he's citing Nicholas Kristof. Okay, so here's how Houston is fighting homelessness and winning. Okay, Kristof is an opinion columnist who reported from Houston and Dallas for this story. Mr. Fortune is a documentary photographer based in Austin, Texas. This is somebody he works with. This is the part they have highlighted from that article. I did not highlight this. Both Dallas and Houston are two Democratic bubbles in Texas that have long faced familiar things. Both cities have tried to address the challenge. But smart policy matters far more than good intentions. In Dallas, homelessness worsened for years, and that city now has the most unhoused people in Texas. Meanwhile, the Houston region has slashed homelessness by 60% since 2011. Homelessness is one of the topics of the leader. Houston achieved these results on the cheap, spending very little on its own money on, even as the West Coast cities like LA, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon have poured hundreds of $1 millions into this. Okay, so what was their secret? Okay, so there were arguably, there were arguably three elements. First, the city had strong political leaders who herded nonprofits, so they worked in unison rather than competing. All right, so that needs an explanation. Second, Houston's lack of regulation make it easy, quick, and cheap to build new apartments. Building a small one-bedroom can cost less than $200,000, while Los Angeles spends as much as $837,000. Also, the cost of land in Los Angeles is higher. You can't even equate the two, but okay. Apartment, spent as much as $837 per apartment for people who were homeless. Again, it was for the building overall, and it's bifurcated out into that and the safety standards and yada yada. Okay. Third, Houston focused less on general help, such as handing out jackets or providing counseling, and moved on and more on moving people into apartments and providing ongoing care for keeping them housed. Cool. What do you do with it? That's why there's 40% of their homeless are still there. Why? Because they didn't do any of the mental health stuff that the other dude was clamoring about. Okay, but turning point came in 2011 when Houston had the 5th highest number of homeless people in America. That's when the mayor at the time, Anise Parker, a numbers-driven policy wonk, introduced hard-headed new initiatives that her successor, Sylvester Turner, sustained. What unfolded wasn't a triumph of compassion so much as one of evidence, management, and impeccable execution. In that, there were probably broader lessons for governing. To see what Houston's approach looked like in practice, I shadowed Molly Permenter, an outreach worker, one morning. She told me she had fled an abusive home at the age of 16, slept under park benches, used drugs, was sex trafficked. She finally escaped, entered the Coast Guard, and turned her life around, and eventually joined Houston's Coalition for the Homeless to try and help others in the position she'd been in. Permenter understands the challenges. She guesses that if an outreach worker had ever approached her when she was on the street, she might have cursed that person. After parking her car by a small wooded area near George Bush Intercontinental Airport, Perimeter cautiously entered the forest along with a colleague from the coalition. We found an encampment hidden in the trees, home to 10 people whose unofficial leader was a charismatic 31-year-old named Joe Cavazos. Cavazos? Yeah. Lean and muscular. Cavazos said he was a construction worker until a shard of glass fell and cut his arm 6 months earlier, leaving him partly disabled. He lost his job, his car, his home, but he put his skills to use building shacks. One was a 2-story marble made of wood scraps. Clearly intelligent and industrious. He said he was expelled from high school in the 11th grade, but later studied. A lovely story, good for him. It made me, he was given mental health medication. It made me feel worse. I got ADHD, bipolar personality disorder, schizo. That's what they're telling me. I don't know. I'm perfectly fine. He said he asked Cavazos if he would like to get on a waiting list for housing. He said yes, but didn't know where to start. When he agreed to undergo an assessment, Perimeter asked him a series of standard questions. This is the dude, Cavazos. That's the glass shard cut, I guess, on his arm. One of Houston's most popular innovations, Coalition for the Homeless, where, again, an organization, an NGO, if you will. In a recent survey by the Oregonian, 2/3 of unsheltered people in Portland said they had never been approached by an outreach worker offering steps to get housed. And among the 1/3 who had been contacted, there had been no follow-up in 3/4 of the cases. In Houston, every sinew is pulling. That's because every person that says yes immediately gets on the path, and they don't have enough space. That's why you need to build buildings. All right, anyways, so this is what this dude is citing. This is that Houston solved this through that 60% of their problem through a myriad of issues. By the way, and in solving that issue, during the story, this is where these people are. This is her. This is Molly Perimeter. She's the woman from the outreach thing. She was homeless. This is where they went into the woods to meet people. It might shock people to know that there are not areas of woods in Los Angeles that they're few and far between, and they're difficult to get to, unlike the area around Houston, which is why people tend to live in the woods. You don't believe me? Go look at Appalachia. You can argue that Appalachia is like 60% homeless encampment with just old buildings. So, anyways.
Doesn't really have a plan to address the root cause of homelessness and fix it. It seems like he just wants...
Sorry, real quick. What's the root cause of homelessness? I mean, they're all robots, right? They all ended up on the street the same fucking way. They all have the exact same challenges. We should just have like one piece of, like, why don't we just hand out a piece of paper that just have, would you like to live in a house? If yes, check this box.
To send them to military bases is what you said, or which would be better than throwing them in prison. My question was, they were able to find all those hotel rooms for all the illegal immigrants that showed up at the snap of a finger. Why can't they do the same thing for homeless people? But
by the way, that's Jimmy taking a swipe at immigrants real quick. The reason that was because that was during COVID, and then the period shortly thereafter, while COVID was still an issue, where people were not traveling as much and hotels were largely open. And quite frankly, a lot of these hotels got an equal amount of money for putting a migrant family or homeless people in their hotels that they would have gotten if they'd been during a tourist season, because they could just kind of name their price. In some cases, they just got the base level of how they could actually keep the doors open or keep the building, because they would have all gone under. In the same way that, people got PPP loans to keep restaurants open because people weren't going there again. But food delivery ended up picking up that part of it. There was a bunch, like hotels, by and large, and recreation centers, movie theaters. Look at fucking movie theaters. Look what happened to them. Because they weren't dual purpose facilities. Hotels are. And here's not the issue. The amazing part is that as temporary housing, that works. But you can't create a secondary, like permanent housing if the idea is to get people back into a real place of their own. So stupid.
Let me just go on here. It says by the way,
he only brought that up because he wanted to slam the fact that somehow immigrants were getting free shit.
Comfortable truth
Right-wing
is that
talking point.
homelessness could be eliminated relatively quickly. Cities like Houston have demonstrated this. Reduced
Yeah. How could you get rid of something with as complex an issue relatively quickly without eugenics being a part of it?
their homeless population by more than 60% through direct
We
works.
looked at this.
Provide immediate shelter, mental health treatment, and job.
Your guest is arguing that providing immediate shelter has to be optional, and if they don't want to go, they can set up a tent on the street, which is commons paid for by the taxpayer, where we have rules so that wheelchairs don't have to go into traffic. And he's saying they should have the right in the agency to just live on the top of a building if they want to. Anywhere they can set up their tent, they should be able to do that and not register with anybody, not tell you where they are. So if you become which is like in Chicago, they went through and did like a census of the homeless in Lower Wacker and found 200 people on the sex offender registry that had a hard time finding a place to live. Shocker. And they were all within walking distance of a school because they were homeless. They just set up their camp there. You can't rent a place that close to the fucking school, but you can set up a tent. And if nobody asks you for ID, or you just lose your ID and they don't fingerprint you for just you're not being charged with homelessness, right? Or they don't check you for something. If you're not grilling on the street, or they find some reason to actually figure out who the fuck you are, you can just stay there. But you know what? These people should not be forced to not live on the street, is his guest's argument.
Training while removing bureaucratic barriers to trap people in the system. It's neither complicated nor...
By the way, anybody who says trap people in the system is an anti-welfare person. They believe that anybody who gets help from the government is going to stay on that tit forever because people are inherently weak, especially poor people. So fuck that noise.
Costly.
By the way, from a guy who got food assistance in my elementary school, I don't think that anybody could argue that I'm not a bit of a go-getter.
Next to the waste built into the current approach. So this, keep in mind, but to put someone in jail, in California at least, it costs $130,000 a year. Now, I'm sure you could service and help a homeless person for a lot less, for a fraction of that cost. I'm sure you could get them housing and for less than $130,000.
Well, shit. If Jimmy's sure, I don't even know why we're arguing about this. Why does the government have to do anything? Why even form an NGO? I'm sure it costs less than that. This information would be based on what? Their caloric needs? What are you going to do? Give them a fucking power bar and a milkshake every day and go, there's your 3,000 calories, fucko.
$1,000 a year. Yet Washington, like most major cities, maintains a sprawling homelessness industry that can...
Industry. Think about what an asshole you would have to be to say that a city, any city, maintains a sprawling homelessness industry. Think about it. Imagine yourself typing that shit.
Consumes hundreds of millions annually while producing minimal results. What
I'm beginning to think that the results that this guy wants is them all dead.
looks like incompetence often hides intent. This isn't conspiracy broad paranoia. It's how...
Conspiracy board? Maybe it's supposed to be born?
entrenched systems protect themselves. So what they're saying here is that we have a system...
Yes. Tell us what they're saying, Jimmy.
set up, which we throw hundreds of millions, $24 billion we threw into the homelessness problem here in California, but none of that money seems to...
Hold on real quick. California, state with, 45 million people in it? Audit finds California spent $24 billion on homelessness in 5 years, didn't consistently track outcomes. Didn't consistently track outcomes. Did it fail? Were more people harmed than helped? California spent $24 billion to tackle homelessness over the past 5 years, but didn't consistently track whether the huge outlay of public money actually improved the situation, according to state audit released Tuesday. With makeshift tents, whoops, this is the whole thing, get out of here, lining the streets and disrupting businesses, oh dear. In cities and towns throughout California, homelessness has become one of the most frustrating and seemingly intractable issues in the country's most populous state. An estimated 171,000 people are homeless in California, which amounts to roughly 30% of all the homeless in the United States. Again, because they fucking live. You know why there aren't as many homeless people in New York and in Chicago and in Detroit? Snow. Jesus. Despite the roughly billions of dollars spent on more than 30 homeless and housing programs during the 2018 to 2023 fiscal years, California doesn't have reliable data needed to understand why the problem didn't improve in many cities, according to the state's audit. Also, COVID happened in the middle of that, you dumb fuck. This report concludes that the state must do more to assess the cost effectiveness of its homelessness program, said the state auditor Grant Parks, who wrote in a letter to Gavin Newsom and lawmakers. The audit analyzed 5 programs that received a combined $13.7 billion in funding. It determined that only 2 of them were likely cost effective, including one that converts hotel and motel rooms into housing and others. Oh my God. The very thing that Jimmy was saying, why we could do that for immigrants, why can't we do it for the number he's citing? The program that they said you could actually track good outcomes was them converting hotel and motel rooms into housing. It's exactly what he was saying, blaming immigrants for taking up fucking space. And of the 5 programs they looked into with the $13.7 billion in funding, I'm sure the rest of the billion that they're talking about comes in somewhere else, determined only 2 of them were likely cost effective. The first one they mentioned is converting hotel and motel rooms, and God damn it. Under $3.6 billion, under the $3.6 billion program that converts hotel and motel rooms, which is a linchpin in Newsom's homelessness plan, the average cost of a room is at least 2.5 times cheaper than building a new home, the audit found. The Housing Assistance Program, which has received $760 million over the past 5 years, gives an average of $12,000 to $22,000, depending on which county, to help low-income families stay in their homes. This is to stop people before they fall through the cracks. And once they're in the house, they'll give them assistance to make sure that they stay above board. And by the way, according to Jimmy and this fuckhead he has on, this is part of the problem. These people are trapped in a cycle of dependence because these lazy, good-for-nothing mothers and their broods of future poor people are getting $12,000 to $22,000 to not live on the fucking street. Ugh. Okay, despite the Auditor Office's professionalism and best efforts, they are at this time unable to draw conclusions about things like whether or not overhead is appropriate or too high. This is about contractors building things, which is another thing entirely too. California is facing a concerning paradox. Despite an exorbitant amount of dollars spent, the state's homelessness population is not slowing down. Again, you know what slows down a fucking homelessness problem? Winter. And we don't have one. Seriously. New York, Chicago, Detroit, all those cities would have a way worse homelessness problem, but the people die. Ours are alive. Okay. So chat room, you guys know I've talked about this before, but one of the things that exacerbated the problem of homelessness was an insistence on releasing people from prison early. There are a lot of people on the street There is a statistically significant number of them. And if you're talking about a 20% rise in homelessness, which sounds enormous, a lot of that is we got too many people in jail, we need to release them. And a bunch of them don't have many friends anymore because of the way they ended up committing their crimes. They're sex offenders or those kind of things. It's very hard to find a fucking job or a place to live if you're in that situation. And they got out early. And it's on their record. You show up at a job interview and you're like, hey, you got 20 years for raping a woman, and they let you out after 8? Pass. Right? There's lots of those fucking people. And that is the result, by the way, of getting people out of jail early. Never mind the fucking traumatic victims, the people who were acted on, who end up homeless in some cases or drug addicted because they were brutalized. That's another fucking conversation. And again, this goes to the point that I have, that everybody wants to paint the homeless like it's a fucking tribe they belong to. Like homeless is it's like being Irish or Apache. You're homeless. Like you all smoke the same peace pipe and wear the same, shirts and ties or whatever. Like there's a uniformity. There's as many, and this is the thing. People who are homeless are as individual in the cause of their homelessness as anybody else in the struggle that they have with disease or family or addiction. Anybody who stays in their home after they become addicted, anybody who stays in their home or continues in school, they have a struggle they go through every fucking day to try to beat their addiction and stay in school and all that. That's people with houses. So of course people without houses have just as many individual reasons why they end up where they are. So this idea that you're just going to fucking, it's the homeless that I blame, like, it's fucking gross. It's bigoted is what it is. And then there is no better example of the bigotry of this shit than saying there's a homeless industrial complex. Hold on. And in these entrenched systems protecting themselves, these people who are helping the fucking homeless are the problem. If we didn't help these people, they'd help themselves. What a bunch of fucking Ayn Rand pamphlet bullshit.
Actually be spent. It actually goes into what Michael Schellenberger called a homelessness industrial complex.
Oh my God. Yet another asshole who will tack industrial complex onto anything. Let's do the censorship industrial complex next. You can talk all about the censorship industrial complex on Twitter and YouTube at the same time while you're being censored, except you aren't.
People get rich off of servicing homelessness.
Yeah, that's what you see those fuckers that volunteer and work on and keep those organizations up and running. They all just live in these giant mansions. You know those people? Fuck them.
So they don't ever want to actually fix the problem, because then they'd be out of a job. And as we said, they already spent $24 billion in California, and that goes right into the pockets of people running NGOs, non-government.
No, it does not. So this asshole actually thinks that well, let's look at that. Okay. How do we okay, I have an idea of like how to address this. Okay, let's do a little bit of math, kids, shall we? Clearly you're starting to recognize this is something that fucking matters to me. As somebody who has volunteered at the mission on Skid Row, that's worked at soup kitchens and food pantries and that kind of stuff. We donate stuff all the time, like clothing and that kind of stuff. All right. So this obviously matters. All right. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So let's get. All right. Let's go to, okay, so average daily, okay, 365 days a year. Okay, so the average daily calorie intake of a human being average, 2,200 calories per person per day. Some need more, some need less. This will average out 2,200. Rough estimate. If you have 170,000 homeless people in California at any given time, approximately, they are going to consume 136.5 billion calories over the course of a year. And how much, let's see. What would be the cost of those calories? I'm just going to do a general, okay. If you're talking the average, let's see. Okay, so the cost of just getting 2,200 calories into each of these individuals, 170,000 homeless people, and that's, again, a fluctuating number, people who come in and come out, whatever, but around there, rock solid. 2,200 calories a day of food for each of these people, if you're just trying to do that. You know how much that would cost? $413 million a year. Just to feed the homeless in California. $413 million. And that's not like, they're not getting, 3,500 calories. They're not gaining weight on this. 2,200. My maintenance calories. I'm 5'9", $165, fully clothed, soaking wet. My maintenance calories are around 2,600. If I want to put on weight, I would need, 2,800. If I'm healing from an injury, right? Okay. Somebody says California can afford it. Not my point. What Jimmy is arguing is that they're wasting a bunch of money. So over the course of 5 years, the $24 billion, a lot of it goes to housing. Okay. So let's do the math on, let's see, single family, whoops. Let's see, let's just go with a bachelor apartment in California. Rural cost per month. Okay. This is the absolute base bottom of what you would expect. About $1,000 to $2,000 a month for a bachelor studio or one bedroom in California, and not in LA, in Bakersfield, in rural California. $1,000 to $200. So let's just say, what do you think? 140,000 people live alone. There you go. Allow. There we go. Let's see. So that's another. So that's, we're talking $140 million just to put them in a bachelor apartment, just a one single room. Then you include people that they are giving assistance to keep on top of that. I'm using 1,000, the absolute base level. Okay, it's $140 million a year to keep 140,000 of them housed. If you just try to give everybody a place. Okay, this is just getting to solving this shit as best we can. Okay. So you're talking about minimum $500 million a year for maintenance calories and a bachelor apartment, a single room with a hot plate and a toilet and a shower, right? At the absolute bottom end. Yeah, $1,200 for a one bedroom in Chicago. Yeah. Well, and again, that's because of the winters, right? Okay, I'm talking about California. This is the whole fucking state, by the way. $500 million every year just to care for, at the absolute baseline, homelessness, and this is without trying to build more homes. This is without medical care. This is without like mental health care or medications for any of these people. Right? That's why HUD and food pantries exist. It's not cheap. Exactly, Alyosha. Exactly. Because I'm not even counting the people who are on the bubble who are trying to keep from bursting. And that's part of what California technically spends on homelessness. Is a huge portion of that is making sure that people who are in housing or in Section 8 housing and that kind of stuff don't fall below the line and end up homeless again. So they get support over that time. And some of these folks, I got news for you, aren't dependent on the system. They're just never going to get out of it. They don't have family. They've got the disabilities, something about them, you know, they're incapable. They're not going to be able to get a job. They have no skill that will allow them to work from that bachelor and, you know, make a bunch of money and break out of that because they are on an intellectual level, either incapable of it or they are damaged or whatever. So there's a bunch of folks in there that are, and it's not because they are morally broken. It's not because there's something wrong with them. It's that their system hasn't caught up to the modern needs of whatever economy we have. And we don't live in the fucking early 19th century or the late 19th century, early 20th century, where those people would just fucking die, right? Again, a big portion of this is because a long time ago, this is like when RFK, like we didn't have all these chronic diseases when I was a kid. That's because people just died. They fucking died. They never got to live that long. People with spina bifida lasted 3 months, not 20 years. They just threw them down a fucking well. They pretended they didn't have a kid or that it was a miscarriage in the 10th month. The only thing wrong with them is America. This is not, no. Hooligan Grundy, this is not about where they are. I got news for you. Same thing happens. It's the same shit all over. The question is volume of, of goods and services available, just resources, effort. You have to prioritize it. Having a house is not a right. Providing a house is our responsibility. Does that make sense? Nobody's born with a roof over their head. Nobody. That they're guaranteed by their God and their creator. Houses have to be made. They have to be physically constructed by the efforts of other fucking people. And to do that, we have to take responsibility. If you're saying home, it's that like having a home, having shelter is a right. It isn't. It's not inalienable to anyone. Ask any of the fucking founding fathers or anybody that lived in a tent or under a fucking tree half the time, especially people who are like moving west or the Spanish, or like all kinds of crazy shit. It's not a right. It's a responsibility. We, those of us that can, have a responsibility to both help in any way we can on a personal level and only vote for people that will solve the issues we give a shit about. And what Jimmy and this fuckhead are saying is that both of those groups don't exist and are impossible and everything is a waste of effort. And so it's probably better off if Trump just kills these people. As long as we don't see it, it doesn't really happen. And it's a couple of, it's sweet, it's softer than Auschwitz, so what are you going to do? We have, look, you have the right to free speech because someone has to actively cover your mouth to stop you from talking. Do you understand? You have an innate ability to speak. Free association. You have a right to stand where you want to stand, right? With another person. You could be with another person if they want you to be with them and hang out with them and talk. Like nobody can separate you if you want to be together. That's because there's nothing inherent that both people have the ability to make that happen on their own. That's a right. Shelter is a society's responsibility. And I am sick to death of hearing this described as a fucking right, as if it magically happens out of nowhere and that someone else is going to fucking solve it. Because that's the problem when you describe everything as a right. If you have, and the same thing, by the way, applies to healthcare. Healthcare is not a right. It's a fucking responsibility. A good society, a strong country, especially one as prosperous as ours, should be able to provide baseline health care for all of its citizens. Not because it's a right or it would just magically, we'd all just fucking handle snakes and praise Jesus and our fucking tumors would go away. It doesn't. Because it's not a right. It's a responsibility. And these words matter. Because when you call it a right, you make it somebody else's fucking problem. It's a right. It should just happen. I'll be over here. It's bullshit. It's a lie people tell themselves. And it takes away the effort and hard work that happens when someone becomes a doctor, becomes a nurse, works on a medicine, tries to discover new treatments and surgeries for stuff. Fucking Ignaz Semmelweis. We didn't have a right to Ignaz Semmelweis saving the life of every person who's alive on the planet right now. You know how he did that? Does anybody know? I brought him up before, and it's very important. Do we have a right to go shake Ignaz Semmelweis to go, tell us, you better tell us how to save lives, or we're going to kill you? We didn't. You know what Ignaz Semmelweis came up with? Wash your hands after you touch a dead body before you give birth. Before you help a woman give birth. As a doctor. When you're done working with this dead body and fucking teaching a class using a corpse, wash your hands. After lunch. If you're going to help a woman give birth, wash your fucking hands. That's what he came up with. They kicked him out of the medical establishment. He lost his license. Because doctors are like, how fucking dare you? Does that sound like a situation where we all had the right to survive this shit? Mm-mm. He had a responsibility to tell people what he knew to be true. And he paid for it. And instead of respecting the responsibility that we have to, which we took as a society, to pass laws and regulations. Yes, the ever important regulations that doctors have to do this. Most of the people that are alive now wouldn't be alive. Children would die there wouldn't even be like a NIC ward. No one has the right to health care. But we, as a society, have a moral responsibility to provide it to anyone who can't get it and to make sure that we're in tip-top shape as best we can so that we don't pass along a disease or we're not a burden to our fellow humans by exercising and eating right and the like. That's a responsibility. Homelessness cannot be solved by someone shaking their fist about rights. Because according to this asshole that Jimmy has on, you also have a right to just fucking die in a puddle of your own urine on the street if that's how you want to go. And society has no responsibility to try and save you from that mental illness. I think we do. Commie. No, because communism would mean that we all have to, I guess, take turns at state homelessness wards or some shit, whatever. I would argue that you can, in your private life, you can make that decision whether you want to volunteer or not. or help in whatever way you see fit. But you can also choose your leaders in a way that will spend your tax dollars, because they're going to, on stuff you prefer. Food, not bombs, for example. If that matters to you, then who you vote for actually does. It has there is a response that comes from you voting that makes it your responsibility. Flutter by Dragon, I volunteer once a week. Good. Good for you. Other than that, I have no opinion. That's right, John. Okay. I felt like we got more into this dipshittery than we needed to, but it's super fucking important. Almost got through the whole goddamn show just on this one topic. I hope you don't mind, because it matters. This matters. We have to start thinking in terms of our responsibility in these situations. Not just the right that will magically come out of it, because at that point you might as well be a fucking snake handler. Waiting for, milk and honey and manna from heaven to solve the problem. Think about your motivation that comes from someone saying that they have a right to something versus you feeling that you have a responsibility to help. And also, think about in terms of if this person is saying they have a right to your responsibility. You must take care of me. Just think about your reaction to that. Just demanding it. Not about whether it's true or not, whatever it is. Is it better if it comes from you, or is it better that it's demanded by somebody else? Especially if that person is or can be perceived as physically capable and the like. Okay. So I want to make the case that a good society that democratic principles are based on are not a right. We don't have a right to even live in a democracy. You know how I know? Because most people don't. You have a responsibility, if you live in a democracy, though, to make it work for everybody. Growing up poor, unable to help myself, makes me want to help others. I've even fostered children in Florida for 6 years. That's beautiful. They didn't have a right to be in your house, but you felt you had a responsibility to help. That's right. Choose less evil. Ugh.